Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the relatively common water ground type Pokemon Barboach and its uncommon evolution Whiscash, collectively known as the Whiskers Pokémon. While they might not be the most attractive looking fish in many cases, the members of the Barboach family are nonetheless interesting creatures that can definitely shake up the battlefield if given the chance. Barboach possess long, gray, tubular bodies with a black zigzagging stripe along their length and blue fins, their tail fin being divided into 5 parts by a series of veins, and their 2 lower fins and larger single dorsal fin being marked by black spots. Their mouth is also blue in color and simple in structure, with a very tiny mouth hole that can open up to the size of their entire body, and a pair of black pinprick eyes on the sides of their head. The front of their mouth is further adorned with 2 small whisker extensions of flesh on the lower lip and a pair of long blue barbels that extend from their upper mouth up and back across the length of their body. Their evolved form, Whiscash, possess a much larger body with a more traditional catfish-like form, having a dark blue upper body and a beige underbelly. They have an unsegmented, light blue tail fin in the shape of a heart with a single spotted dorsal fin of the same color, and their lower body is adorned with 2 pairs of dark blue, flat fins, the ones on the front of their body being larger in size. Their mouth is still light blue in color and has a small pair of lower whiskers, and their eyes have white to them now, though still having black pinprick pupils, additionally possessing a yellow W-shaped marking on their forehead. Finally, the whisker-like barbels that they possessed as Barboach have turned a golden yellow color and have grown considerably in length and even curl into a loop at their ends. The members of the Barboach family are a bit different compared to most types of fish in that they tend to prefer living in the muddy bottoms of their habitat rather than the water that otherwise comprises said habitats. These fish generally have very poor eyesight, hearing, taste, and even smell senses when they are first born, and thus seemingly would be poorly suited for survival. However, they have managed to overcome this obstacle by developing a pair of extremely sensitive whiskers on their face that act in place of their senses as their main way of interacting with their environment. These whiskers are packed with sensitive nerves and act as a biological radar unit for these fish at a young age, by allowing them to sense their environment through minute changes in the water currents around them, additionally being able to detect chemical odors in the water to determine what, if anything, is close to them or approaching them. If they detect something that they have learned is a threat, they will use their long bodies to wriggle their way into the mud at the bottom of their habitat and hide there. In fact, Barboach mostly just stay hidden in the mud most of the time, especially when they are sleeping or hunting, only leaving their whiskers exposed in the case of a nearby prey item appearing within their vicinity, and in turn triggering them to lash out at it from their hiding place when it gets close to them. This is also the primary reason why they are classified as partial ground types, having adapted the same elemental characteristics possessed by the mud they live in. This can also make them difficult to fish for, as fishermen often have to rely on expensive scented lures in order to entice these fish to leave their homes. On the other hand, their evolved form, Whiscash, are active predators that can eat and digest just about anything, so they will often swim around their territory, which they fiercely protect to the point of sometimes claiming entire ponds or swamps as their personal space, and will swallow whole anything that manages to be in the way of their open mouth, muddy bottom included, as they swim around at night, primarily being nocturnal in nature. However, because their sense of sight still isn't that great, these fish still need to rely on their whiskers in order to detect nearby prey, and even then, it doesn't always work well for them, as they have been known to swallow trash by accident. Thankfully, they have strong stomach acids, which can help grant them access to the belch attack after evolution, so this rarely poses a serious danger to them. As a result of their fairly simple-minded natures and advanced sensory detection abilities, these fish can possess oblivious and anticipation as base abilities, while their ability to rehydrate themselves by dipping into water helps to grant them access to the hydration ability as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, in the case of Whiscash, while they might get access to some fairly powerful attacks later in life, these fish underperform for the most part, and possess below average base stats in nearly every category for a fully evolved water and ground type Pokemon, The only exception is their base HP stat, which is above average for both of their assigned types. So at the very least, they can take a decent amount of punishment in battle and make use of what strong attacks they do gain natural access to in the meantime. While Barboach are usually keen on staying in the muddy bottoms of their aquatic habitats on a regular basis, it is noted that they do have the ability to survive on land for short periods of time, though even then, getting a hold of them is a lot harder than one might think. In order to keep their bodies protected against germs in muddy water and hydrated while out of the water, these creatures excrete a thick, slippery mucus across their body that acts as a seal against infection and a trap for moisture, absorbing it from the air and keeping it close to the skin of these fish so they do not dry out, though the slime itself will dry up after a few hours of exposure to the air, rendering these creatures in danger of dying. Even while in this somewhat vulnerable state, these fish can be a pain to capture with one's bare hands, as the mucus is so slippery that even the strongest of grips will only cause the beast to be squeezed out and away from them, and even normally non-slick surfaces can be propelled away from their slimy forms with just a little bit of pressure in a direction, leading some to believe that they are simply made out of hardened mud, while others hold regular festivals with contests to see how many of these fish individuals can catch with their bare hands. This makes it very hard for most predators to capture these fish, bird Pokemon included, and even if they do manage to get a hold of them, they are in for a nasty surprise, as the slime contains a toxin that will make those that try and eat Barboach extremely ill, likely enough to cause regurgitation of the fish in its entirety, where it can then escape. As such, these fish are generally not seen as edible to most, and even if you can remove the slimy film from their bodies, their muddy taste can make them a poor catch compared to the much tastier and safer fish to eat that they share their habitats with. Due in part to the larger size and the greater length of their whiskers, Whiscash, in addition to having access to a belch attack, can utilize moves like Tickle and Zen Headbutt to more effectively attack different types of opponents in battle and render their physical attributes weakened. But that is not what really helps to set them apart from their pre-evolved form. These weighty fish, as mentioned before, are extremely territorial, sometimes claiming entire ponds and swamps as their territory. When they are approached by a potential threat or are otherwise angered, these fish can wriggle and flex their bodies violently to deliver a powerful thrash attack, which they gain access to immediately after evolution. However, in their case, the thrashing can be so severe that it can be strong enough to trigger tremors and even full-blown earthquakes, hence their ability to naturally learn the move. These tremors can be felt as far as 3 miles away, and while they might not be incredibly destructive at long distances, the fact that they can be detected at all is quite impressive. Strangely enough, this power has actually managed to result in a positive for other life forms, as these fish have the amazing power to actually detect natural earthquakes as a consequence of this behavior. The sensitive whiskers on their face are adapted to be able to detect when they have caused enough of a disturbance in the area to make their point in an issue and thus when to stop. But as a consequence, they can actually detect the most minute of foreshocks as they approach, and when they detect something coming that is particularly large, they will often leap violently out of the water and into the air before diving to the bottom of their habitat and burying themselves in the bottom to protect themselves against potential disturbances in the water caused by the earthquake, the mud acting as a shock absorber. This has led many seismologists in poorer parts of the world to rely on these catfish as detectors for this type of activity, and while they might not have the long-term detection abilities that machines have, they are still better than nothing, and to this day, there has never been a false report issued by one of these fish. This might not necessarily make them that much more dangerous in a fight, but being helpful to humanity is still a good thing, and definitely adds on to the decently powerful offenses that these creatures can be capable of in the right circumstances. Though they might be among the odder types of fish Pokemon out there, the members of the Barboach family are still fascinating creatures that can more than make themselves useful to those that are willing to experiment with them. They might be more about being able to take damage than really give it out, but their ability to generate tremors and earthquakes nonetheless can make them surprising foes to have to face in the water. Just do yourself a favor and try not to get in their face too much in the wild. They might not look that intimidating, but considering that these fish can go onto land for short periods of time, you might find yourself in a shaky situation if one of these fish comes to the surface after being disturbed and or taunted and decides to deliver a thrashing that will more than make the local headlines when it causes the very buildings and earth around you to crumble and potentially come crashing down on top of you. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yeah, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.